Well, it's December 4th now, 3:23 a.m. and I'm just making this special journal entry of mine, like everyone I think is kind of special. And so when you got a whole bunch of special things, then nothing becomes special. And you're back to the place of reevaluating if anything actually is special or what is special. And I appreciate women's biology in the sense, because since I'm not a woman, I appreciate it as an onlooker, and with the little bit that I know about women's biology is like it's more the hormonal stuff is more like it dictates more. Okay, so I know like women can have mood swings based on their hormones, and since a woman's body is like the earth, it gives birth, then it has to go through these changes and everything that men don't have to go through. I don't know what I brought that up for, but I brought that up just because sometimes I feel like, I myself have changes in my, I do have changes in my feelings, and then also my thoughts, and it's based on, it could be based on a lot of things. They say things are based on the rhythm of the moon and the planets and the cycle of Earth and tides and everything. They say it affects everything. But I didn't want to get up at 3:23 in order to just blabber about everything in the world, because there's just too much to go blabbering on about. But I'm getting up right now at 3:23 a.m. kind of because what I heard on this thing right here. So as I was like trying to sleep and stuff, I was listening to this like report, about that they seen a black hole and it shouldn't be there. And then they're talking a lot about, black holes. And when scientists, start talking about some things, and they use words, that like I don't even understand, and hardly most people, unless they're really studying science, they are not going to understand. Like they talk about like how much a black hole even weighs. I mean, but then okay, but the reason that I got up, especially on this one here, is because on my last talk, I was talking a little bit about, being worthy enough to at least go to hell. And then also, the end result of a lot of things is that you just have to guess. And I just wanted to clarify one thing about hell. Because, hell can be defined a couple different ways. I feel like I got pain right there now. And that's another reason I got up. Because sometimes I feel like any day could be my last. And if I don't say what I got to say right now, I'm never going to have the opportunity to say it. And I would like to at least say something to you, my grandchildren, and look, my dogs are so cute. Look. See? Goldie's taking my spot. And every time I get up, if I don't come back real fast, she's gonna take my spot. Anyway, because it does get crowded on that bed. That's why now my bed is a lot lower than it used to be, because the box spring broke down all the way down flat. So I just got it sitting on a flat box spring, and I took it off the frame. It was easier for Sally to get up there. But look, see, okay, see, and see, the thing I did wrong today, I went to the store. Look, I haven't smoked cigarettes in a long time now. At least, I don't know, it seems like a few weeks. But I was just hungry for one, probably because I was thinking about hell and stuff. And I don't know, a little bit of anxiety mixed in. I bought a pack, and I thought I was just going to smoke one, because all I wanted was one. And I even told the lady that I bought them from, I really only wanted one cigarette. I was going to ask you if you'd just sell me a cigarette for $1, and then I wouldn't get a whole pack. But I said, well, I wasn't going to do that. And anyway, this pain in my heart right now, this pain in my chest, probably because I smoked a whole pack of cigarettes. And the thing is, when am I going to learn my lesson? I mean, I have learned a lot of lessons in my life. Oh, man. And this one, like, it hurts, Anyway, one of the things about hell, it really started making me think about hell, is because the worst kind of hell that would ever be for me is if my dogs ate me. Like if my dogs, who I love with all my heart, had to like just become monsters and like eat me. And that would be hell, because I love my dogs. Like if they weren't my dogs and stuff like that, and I was out in the wild, got attacked by some animal or something, some predator animal, that just had a notion to eat me or kill me just because I was there. Well, that would be different, okay? That would be expectable. But when you love somebody and they turn against you, that is really, really bad. That's like a really, really bad hell. And there is an old movie about a dog. I think his name was Old Yellow. But they called him Old Yeller, because he was like a yellowish kind of dog. And they called him Yeller, I think. Old Yeller. And everybody loved him and he loved everybody else, but then he got rabies, and then he went mad and they had to kill him. Well, if my dogs, ever got like rabid, that's what it's called when you have rabies, and then they turned against me, and I had to kill my own dog. Okay, it seems like something like this has happened before. I don't want to remember it. And I'm not saying it did happen. It just seems like it did. And that would be hell. And it seemed like, okay, in the astral studies, what they study and everything, they find out stuff. The whole cosmos and stuff, has like, there's like black holes. Like a black hole is like essential to like existence. Like solar systems, uh, um, solar systems come out of black holes. And there's a lot of stuff to really be studied. But if you study it, then, you do understand how insignificant you are, how we are so insignificant. And it's kind of hard to feel a sense of like real purpose and stuff like that when you feel so insignificant. Like nothing really ever really matters anyway. And you're just gonna go back to that black hole or back to hell. Okay? Because whatever hell is, all right, it's something is being made in hell. So, but I'm gonna just say, just for the correct record, okay, that before the New Testament, in the old days, like in the days of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, in the days of the patriarchs. Okay, well back then they didn't believe like in like being tortured in hell. Okay, it wasn't like the idea, of the smoke of suffering voices ascending into the heavens like a sweet smelling savor in the nostrils of Almighty God. But it's a place of the dead. Hell is a place of the dead. And it's a placeholder. It's a place of the dead. That's what hell is in the Old Testament. The Hebrew word is Sheol. And but in the New Testament, Jesus made reference to the burn pit, and he said that people's souls would go to the burn pit, and then they translated the burn pit, Gehenna, which was the actual burn pit for trash. They call that hell in the New Testament. And so you have a evolution in thinking and stuff like that. And in our evolution of thinking and stuff, we did at least from a long time ago, people used to think God was pretty angry. Angry God, You could tell that by reading, the old writings and stuff. At least a certain part of society, the Jewish part of society. And at least it seems like that to me. And I don't know, like, about, Muslim, like, I never read the Quran and stuff. I mean, I know parts of it, like, I've read parts of it, but I don't really know the whole philosophy. But I know that comes around the same time as the Jewish religion and tradition and all that. But, so, I was laying down feeling pretty bad. Thinking about hell and black holes. And how the cycle of life is kind of like that we return to nothing. And then, you have to ask yourself the question, what even are we, and what is this all about? And, I think about my dogs and everything, and okay, they look to me. They look to me. They look at me, and they even watch me. And I try to learn from them, because they don't have the same kind of worries about life that I do. And like, is anything even gonna mean anything anyway? And so I did, get on my I pulled out of a post that I had to pull out, kind of like pulling out a tooth. I did it right and everything. I didn't like destroy everything. And I put a new one in, okay, so I could go up, but because I had to make a modification. And sometimes you have to do that as you go along. I had to do that, okay, to make things better in alignment so that I could take my tower a little bit up, a little bit higher. And then, I would be satisfied, get up there, and then in the morning, when it gets light out and stuff, I'm probably going to go ahead and just finish that up so I can sit up there and maybe like do one of my final talks. I don't think it's going to be my final talk though, unless like I do die or something. But I tell you, you can't help but think, sometimes that you could die. And, but anyway, I'm just going to play this one part on this thing, because kind of like it's synchronicity. Because when I was just talking about like guessing, in my last one I was talking about guessing, because a lot of times, we just have to make an educated guess, or you just have to guess. Or when things are too complicated, you can't figure it out, you just have to ask yourself, does it even matter? And then everything always does come down to the fact that, like, it's really not about us. It's not about me. It's not about you. Trust the process. But people, all go through like different kind of processes, and women go through different processes than men. And I don't know, maybe there's a different purpose, like a black hole is going to be going through a different process than, like maybe like the rest of the Milky Way. And so I'm just gonna play this one right here.
Holes grew faster. Stars formed in environments that we thought would be too hostile for star formation. UHZ-1 is a perfect example, a galaxy with a supermassive black hole that, according to our pre-JWST models, shouldn't exist. And yet it does. This is how science progresses. We build models based on the data we have. We make predictions, and then we test those predictions with new observations. When the observations don't match the predictions, we revise the models. The discovery of UHZ-1 is forcing us to revise our...
Okay, the discovery of UHZ-1 is forcing them to revise their model. I'm gonna stop right there. But, and see, in that part, it said, okay, that's exactly what I was talking about. That you make a theoretical model of what things could be and stuff, and then if things don't match up like they discovered, okay, according to their model, there shouldn't be like a black hole in this one area, but there is. Okay? And if you listen to this stuff, okay, look, you can see the title now. JWST discovered a black hole that shouldn't exist. Okay? Look, this other one down here says Dark Heart. And that one over there, physics says God exists. right? 2 hours of Brian Greene explaining the existence of God. And then Dark Heart of our Milky Way. I put it up like Dark Heart of our Milky Way. The biggest secrets of Milky Way's dark heart. And then this one over here. Why Earth enters ice ages every 100,000 years. Okay. You see? So the thing in life is always to in face of the absurdity, keep pressing on and trying to do better and be better and stuff like that. No. Anyway. Anyway. I thought that was a really good summation in that part there about, about how the scientific method. And after all, I mean, that's why I say, like, I have like at least like these four captains that I try to give allegiance to in my thinking with respect, And of course, one more time, that would be, I'll say in the descending order of my learning. Okay, first, Jesus Christ and God in that manner, Jesus Christ and God, and then the Buddha. Which I felt like, after my dad died, I thought that, he was like studying with the Buddha. Okay. And then Sun Tzu. And Sun Tzu, I've been learning about Sun Tzu for a long time. But I never really gave allegiance or anything to like teachings of Sun Tzu, or tried to really concentrate on him too much. Because I never really did like fighting, but I would fight, and then Einstein, and science, and Hawkins, because Hawkins did a lot of studies in the black holes, like and Hawkins, like understood Einstein. And not many people can really go into science into those kind of depths. But when you listen to them talk and everything, and see what they write down and everything like that, and then understand what they're talking about, then you can understand things that are pretty amazing. But the most amazing thing is to keep going forward in the darkness. But see, that's kind of what hell is, because hell is also considered outer darkness. And okay, the worst hell that I could ever possibly experience, that God could concoct, would be, like, for me at least, like being eaten by my dogs. And this is also a similar way. If you love somebody, an actual human being, person, and then they betray you. And that's kind of like being eaten by your dog. Like if you love them and then they betrayed you. It happened. It happens. It happened to me before. And it happens to everybody, I think. Sometime or another, you get betrayed by somebody who you love. And then they become even your enemy. And then you just have to wonder, was it anything ever even real? But but there's always constant ways of dealing with problems and challenges. You know, problems to figure out and challenges to face, like emotionally. And that's why I come down in thinking that it's matters of the heart that are actually being studied, you know, because I actually realized that in like one of my last talks, you know, that I was writing down from my own journal entries. I mean, that I was saying of my thinking that, you know, like with all the lies and everything, like what is really being scrutinized here, like what's being studied. And then, you know, and then I realized that it matters of the heart, and that has to do mostly with feeling. And like feeling is like the most important. And that's why it's really, really important to try to manage our own feelings. I have to manage my feelings. And we always have to manage our feelings. And like, you know, Bonnie, she's like watching me talk, like she's looking right at me. And they look at me and they watch me, and I like to see them sit together, and it gives me a good feeling, you know. Because I know that they're like, you know, paying really close attention to me. And then that makes me feel, you know, needed and wanted, I guess, and important. I don't know. I don't really know what I feel. I like it, though. I don't know why I feel it. I can maybe tag these kind of things onto it. Like, okay, I do take care of them. Okay, so I have feelings like I love them. And that's why, like, if my own dogs, like I used to think that my dogs would be with me in heaven and stuff, you know. Like I'd have a lot of dogs in heaven, and I'd be very, very happy that I had all these dogs on earth, because then I'll have them in heaven. They say it's better to have loved. Nat King Cole has in one of his songs, better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. But sometimes, like, love hurts so bad that it's kind of like you might wish that you never loved, so you won't have to feel the pain and the hurt and the disillusionment as your world collapses. Your whole world consists of everything that you love. And when your world comes collapsing down and it breaks your heart and you feel like you're just going down into that hole, descending down into the darkness and depths of solitary confinement, where they just throw you in the dungeon and forget the key. I mean, and then throw away the key and then forget all about you. And then you just die alone in the dark after your body expires. It's a bad way to go. And then if you have to suffer that, why would you even want to be? Why would you even want to exist? And you just have to think, okay, if God is mean, and this is all like a very, very mean play, then well, what's it all worth, you know? I never really liked to watch horror movies and stuff. So that's why I think it's a better, positive, more positive kind of methodology to and mode of operation, or modus operandi. I'm just throwing out some words. It all means the same thing. But you know, your MO, your modus operandi, and your you know, if you can hold everything in suspension and still live. So, because that's where I am, you know. I'm always thinking, you know, like I could die like any minute. And I probably won't, especially if I just really quit smoking. Like I'm not gonna buy another pack tomorrow or nothing, or when I, you know, get up. I don't know why I did it, but I did. But see, I know I've been through this cycle, you know, before, and I know how to take control of myself and stuff like that. But that's how women are too, you know. Okay, in their bodies, you know, they learn how they're gonna be, like, you know, flooded with like hormones and stuff like that or whatever, and gonna make them have, like, you know, feelings of anxiety or whatever, however they feel, you know, based on like the hormones that go in their systems and then, you know, into their brains and stuff like that. And it's very complicated and a very real process. And so, you know, that's why, like, you know, if you do have a sister and stuff like that, you know, these things you have to learn about, but, you know, not that you have to make a big deal out of them. I mean, everybody has to live within their own skin, you know, and adjust and manage their own selves. And we all have our own challenges. And sometimes it can become very disheartening. And like for me, like, you know, I started thinking a little bit about hell and what all that means. And we always do, really, pretty much. It is a lesson in life, you know. I mean, even in the solar galaxy, you know, like the solar systems come out of black holes. Okay. And these kind of things, you know, teach us about our own lives. And that's really all I want to really say in this one, because, you know, I always do feel like I am handing off the baton to you, and I just hope that you realize, like, the same story, you know, about the people at the campground looking in the ashes of another person's fire that went out looking for the coals to start a fire. And that's kind of like, it can give a person hope that, you know, somebody else has been here before. And so I hope for you, my grandchildren, that you will, like they say in Star Trek, you know, be bold and brave and go where nobody has gone before. All right.